everyone, and welcome back. We have another Kate and Steph episode today, and we just wanted to do an episode almost like a year in review and kind of just reflect on the past year of us working on Omnia Fit, creating Omnia Fit, what has changed, what we've learned, just sort of like a big wrap up of what this year has looked like for us in reflection of 2021.
Yeah. And to kind of start it off, I mean, it's crazy to think that it hasn't been quite a year since we've been working on this, but
Yeah.
pretty close. I think I reached out to you in February or March?
We had already been working on it for a little bit by the time that I got my current job in April. So I want to say it was by March.
I remember there being
It
snow
was
on the
cold.
ground.
Yeah, and we had already been working on
Yeah.
it when I had COVID. So that was March. So it's
Yeah.
been probably since February.
Right. Yeah, because remember we started off, midst of the pandemic and especially last winter, things got really bad. So we were nervous to like hang out inside somewhere and meet and chat. And I think I just randomly reached out to you one day. I think I actually said in my text, hey, this is probably super random, but would you be interested in partnering when I have personal training clients who want nutrition work? Like, is that something that would be interesting to you? And I just
Yeah.
asked you to go on a walk.
Yeah, I think you were like, let's grab coffee and go for a walk and talk through that because we had talked about me being a dietitian a lot, and I had written a blog for you once before in your last job. So we were kind of like, that was already on our radar. And I think it started with a lot of walks.
Yeah, I think we met inside once, but we were just like trying to be safe. But that was actually a little sneaky thing that I did. So actually, where OmniaFit really started, I don't even know if you know this. It was like over 2 years ago. No, that's a lie. Year and a half ago. I was working at my last job, which I was a co-founder of another startup, just more in the nutrition space, which is where like found out you were a dietitian. I mean, we were already friends, but I found out you were a dietitian and you loved writing, and so you offered to do a few blogs for us. And I just started thinking like that startup was a goal of build the company, like sell it in 5 years, just a big like VC backed startup, a little bit different than this. And I was thinking like, what would I want to do afterwards? And I had already been personal training just on the side. I had been doing one-on-ones and group classes. And my boyfriend who, like, he's from Germany, and I knew I wanted to live a life abroad and here. And so I knew my work needed to go online, just like his was, and pandemic, everything's been going online. I was like, but I don't want to just build another fitness website. So that's where the idea of Omnia Fit really started coming. But I mean, back then it was this whole like, well, I have some on-demand videos, but that's not really the biggest focus. It's going to be mainly recipes or like ways to, I don't know, the recipe idea was kind of there, but I didn't really know what to make of that. But then the workouts was going to be like a build your own workout type thing with like an algorithm.
And
I don't know
remember
how
that.
I'd
You were
make
like,
that.
I want people to like build workouts, like mix and match.
Yeah.
That just like, brought me back. I totally forgot about that.
But that was like summer of 2020 that I had first thought of that and really started putting it together. I remember our birthday weekends, Kevin and I have very similar birthdays, really talking to him about that. And he was like, why can't you? Like, just start doing a little bit now. So it was in the back of my mind. And then I left the startup I was working at in February and was like, oh shit, I got to figure out what I want to do. And I wanted you to come on to OmniaFit right away, but I didn't want to scare you away. It was like this big idea of let's do this big company together, like right off the bat. We had no professional relationship at all at that point, just solely friendship. And so I like tiptoed in by saying, would you ever be interested in doing dietitian work? Like that really was not my end game in asking you that, to be totally honest.
Thank you.
It was just like warming
up. Yeah, because I remember at first it was more of like, I'm going to add a reference link on my personal training site for if somebody wants to talk to a dietitian. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I was like, what if I also did this? And then it was, what if we also did this?
Yeah, that was totally on purpose. I mean, it's like dating, right?
I was just going to say, it's not a coworker that like wanted to ask their coworker out, but was like, I need to ease into it. So she's like, do you want to get a coffee?
Yeah. 100%. Like, absolutely. I mean, I have asked you if you did want to do nutrition work with some of my clients. So that was very legitimate. But in my head, I'm like, if she says no to this, there's no way she's gonna say yes to this. So I gotta like ease her into it and like see if she would truly be interested in this. So I slowly boiled that pot to get you to say yes to
I was like the
this.
frog that didn't know that I was boiling. I was just
Yeah.
swimming.
You probably still don't know what you're getting yourself
This
into, to be
episode is actually just
honest.
Steph telling me something else that I'm doing.
If Kate records no more podcast episodes, we know why. This is the last you hear of her. Um, but no, so truly that's where it started. But it did, I mean, even when I was talking to you and I got you on board, pot's fully boiled, you're like, yeah, let's do this. It did start off with like a build your own, and it might still evolve to that, who knows? But thankfully, like you and I both have startup experience, and so we know that one of the biggest mistakes that people can do when they start a company is to just have an idea that they really like and
Yeah.
just do it. Like sometimes that works, but not all the time. The people you see who are successful with it, partially they got lucky, also partially they started off that way, but then asked their
Yeah.
customers what they liked. And so that's what we started to do too. Even my little sister worked with us a little bit this summer, and I just had her. Well, first it was a lot of work to figure out like who we wanted to help, like the target audience, basically. I don't want to make this too businessy of a podcast, but
Yeah.
like we had to figure out who
Yeah.
we wanted to target. So we figured out that we wanted to target women. I mean, really, it was, we've always been super passionate about just diet culture and the messages that people hear online. But that's really, I think, what kind of drove us to like, no, we want to help women, but with a really honest message, not the
Yeah. And
diet culture
without like
message.
selling a quick fix or making people buy powders or gimmicky
Hmm.
things, like just an authentic way to get healthier.
Yeah, because I think that really clicked. I remember us going on a walk and we were talking. I think one of my clients mentioned one of those fad things or something, and we just started going on a rant
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Not
We
to be
did. We
rude.
were like, I'm so sick of hearing about these. And I think it's just in our day to day so much too that you hear about it, especially around this time of year. You constantly hear, like, if you work in an office, people talking about, I'm doing this program, I'm
Hmm.
doing that program. I want to lose 5 pounds after Christmas because I gained so much weight with holiday eating. And that really first of all, just negative self-talk that you hear all around you, just people kind of putting themselves down and being like, oh, I shouldn't eat this at the holiday party, to, oh, I shouldn't eat these brownies, as
Gained
you
so
you
much
reach for a
weight.
brownie and you're like, should I not be eating these brownies? Like that very toxic sort of mindset of you have to be on some kind of quick fix program all the time.
Or the opposite of people just saying, I'm going to eat everything in sight and then
Yeah.
eat like nothing for
Yeah,
the
people being like,
January.
"Oh, I just can't eat today because I ate so much yesterday." It doesn't work
Hmm.
like that, first of all. It's such a part of like our day to day, I think, especially as women, to hear that all the time. And so I think we both just wanted to create something refreshing that was validating that you don't have to participate in that, and hopefully get some people away from that mindset.
Yeah, because we went on that walk and we just both got really fired up over just like there's a way to live life. I mean, just listen to any of our podcasts
Yeah,
and you'll hear us preach about it. um, that you can have a fun life and live healthy, and there's more to life than just looking thin, and there's other measurements of health besides just what you look like, and
yeah,
that's not even a measure of health. Um, so we realized like we wanted to really target women. And so I had my sister talk to like a bunch of my mom's friends, just trying to make it people who weren't best friends with us, who would give us honest feedback on our idea, or even just learning like what types of questions do you have? What do you look for on a fitness site? What do you like? What do you not like? I mean, just basically this questionnaire of just trying to understand how women really think, because we had our
yeah,
assumptions like you and I, but we're different working in the space. Like we see all this stuff through a different lens, and so we wanted a sense of what's the reality of what women are generally seeing, but what would they
yeah,
actually like to see. And that was where there's one specific woman. I actually overheard this interview that my sister was doing, and she said, I wish there was just one place to get information from. She's like, my doctor, I'm hitting menopause. I read online that I should be eating more protein, and I asked my doctor about it in our annual checkup, and my doctor was like, yeah, you can, but you don't have to. And and didn't really give her a straight answer. And she said, I wish that my doctor would just say, hey, you're getting near menopause. Here's a dietitian I recommend you speak to if you want, just to get some information, just to know how to nourish your body as it's going through these new changes. She's like, we don't get that from our doctors. They just tell us we're good and then we're out the door and we think we're fine. But there's so many things that we don't know about ourselves. And that's where it really clicked. And I remember calling you after I overheard that conversation, and that's actually where the idea of the podcast came up, calling you and saying, Kate, you have to hear this. Like, this is such, like, we're doing a podcast. I think I told you, I don't even think I asked you. I think I told you that we were
Yeah,
doing
you
a
were like, so
podcast.
we're going to do a podcast before we do the website. And once again, I was like, what? But
Hot,
I
even
love
hotter.
podcasts, and I had done a podcast episode before. And so I was kind of all in on that too. I loved, and that's probably about one of my favorite things is the podcast and doing these episodes. And we love to talk. So
Exactly. But that's kind of where we got to today. And I mean, we're not building the build your own workouts or make your own workouts thing. Again,
yeah,
maybe in the future, but I realized, I mean, the website was already hard enough to build as it is. I don't even know what an algorithm's made of, to be honest. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. We're gonna
that
have
would
to
be a
hire
job for a
someone one day for
developer.
that, I
If you know a
think.
developer who wants to build your own workout website.
But I've been talking to women, like, people just they don't want to put in the effort. They just want to, like, follow for the most part. I don't know. The website has a lot of growing and
Yeah.
evolving, and that's where even like now that it's launched and live, we're constantly asking people what they like about it, what they don't like about it. Like, I've had people tell me on the workouts my music was too loud, I was hard to understand even with the words. So I was like, oh, okay, good to know. I'm good. Turn the music down in the next videos. Um, and like getting people's feedback on if they like the trainers that we have on, what they think about the recipes, and so also give us feedback on anything that you try. But it's been an evolution and will continue to evolve. So stay along
Yeah.
for the ride.
Um, in terms of
Exciting.
evolution, how do you feel like your day-to-day schedule has changed? Because you kind of went through, I mean, we both went through a lot of transitions this year, like even just in our personal life. So,
Mhm.
in combination with Omnia Fit, like how do you feel like your day-to-day has changed the most?
Yeah. So it was interesting. I have to speak outside of Omnia Fit a little bit because, yeah, a lot of change happened at once. As I mentioned, I left the startup that I was at prior at like the end of February, and I didn't know that I wanted to pursue this full time, or even be a full time trainer. I mean, I love training, so when I was kind of like taking a month or two to figure it out and still needing to make money, I just took extra classes, I took extra clients, and started doing more training. And I already knew I loved it. And then I realized coming out of the first winter of the pandemic, people haven't been moving. A lot of people, especially coming out of seasonal depression, and just have gained weight and like just aren't moving a lot. We're just so isolated. It's like I feel like the need for trainers are going to increase. So if I'm gonna give this a go, now is the time to do it. I felt demand and supply was like a very opportune time to try to be a full time trainer. I was like, I'll give myself 6 months, and if I'm not really getting enough clients to make ends meet, then we'll figure it out. So it did take a while to start getting a really solid book of clients like I have now. So it kind of fluctuated where I was like, okay, like I'm making enough money to pay my bills. So let's just do this website thing and pour as much time into this as possible. I learned very quickly that building a website from scratch is very difficult. Thankfully, I had a lot of time in the beginning to get like the base of it done. But I almost threw my laptop across the room several times. So I was just in a unique situation of I like had a job and was making money, but it wasn't like going from a 9 to 5 to another 9 to 5 or 40 hours to 40 hours. So I was just in a very, like, honestly special situation that I was only working at the time like 20, 30 hours doing training and classes, and then had the rest of the time for Omnia Fit. And I've kind of kept that ratio actually. I've realized I like that ratio. I just got more efficient with my time. So, for example, classes, I love coaching classes and they're fun, but they don't make me as much money per hour as personal training does. So, as I've got more clients, I cut back the classes, and it's been difficult because, you know, you have the more hours you work, the more money you make. And I worked at a startup before where I, didn't, we didn't want to pull money from the company. We wanted to pull as little as possible. So it's been a challenge to manage, spend time on Omnia Fit that is just in its very beta stages and not really producing any income, but it's super fun. Like I was loving even the time, except for when I wanted to throw my computer across the room. It was super fun to build and fun to figure out, and like talking to you, Kate, and figuring out like
Yeah.
exactly what we wanted to do and how we wanted to look like, choosing the colors,
Yeah.
the name, even like all that stuff was super fun. Um, but yeah, I've tried to keep a very even like work 20, 30 hours to make sure I could still have money to live life, but then be able to work another 20, 30 hours, we'll say 10 to 30 hours
Yeah.
on Omnia Fit. And that's kind of, I've kept that. But I could see it in the future pulling more, like the ratio continuing to change of more time on Omnia
Yeah.
Fit, less time on training
Yeah.
as business grows. Yeah. But for you, you don't have, you can't just choose, I'm going
Yeah.
to work 5 hours less this week or I'm going to earn
Yeah.
more money this week. So you working 5 and doing this is
Yeah.
very
And
fun.
Omnia Fit just aligned with like also the weirdest year of my life, I think. Steph got some interesting texts from me along the way, like just like at the beginning, like yeah, we like I was sort of a deadbeat at times. Because I went through like right when we started Omnia Fit, like went through a huge breakup, moved, like changed jobs all within like a month, and then jumped back into Omnia Fit, like
Literally within a month.
literally a month. I texted Steph, I was like, so I went through a breakup last night, I'm moving out, and she called me and was like, what? I was still like responding.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, you texted me that. I'm like, this
I
was a
was
bomb to
responding
drop. And
about something with
I,
Omnia Fit. I was like, so anyway, I'm gonna work on that tonight because last night I didn't get to it because I went through a breakup and
yeah, you were like, I'm going to need something to do to keep my mind off of this. I'm like, no, like, don't work on this. You have, like, focus on you. You don't need, it's like, if you need the distraction, cool. But that's when the pot was very much boiling. And I was like, we're going to turn it down to simmer for a little bit. I was like, homegirl's got, you have your life to figure out first, and then
Steph
you
was
can
like,
work
"Oh
on
my God,
this.
stop! No, don't do any work."
So no, you were not a deadbeat. You were going through a lot of life transitions, which personal care,
Yeah,
you got to take care of yourself. You can't just go through everything,
yeah.
do
I mean,
everything
it
at once.
was, yeah, it was that was a transition, and then I changed jobs as well. So I started like going into the office again every day, where before I was working remote, which was like a little bit easier with Omnia Fit to kind of sneak into the day, because you just have I think more pockets of time when you work from
Mhm.
home. But just kind of getting into the groove of our routine and like what was going to work with me having a 9 to 5. Me and Steph spend every Sunday together now, pretty much.
I know you tell your boyfriend your second home is in South Loop. Your
Yeah,
Sunday home is
yeah. I
South Loop.
like go to Steph's all day and then go to my boyfriend's at night, and then that's my Sunday. Like me and Charlie just hitchhike around town on Sundays, but
Yep.
yeah, and that like it took us a while to kind of figure that groove out of like what would be the best day for us to meet and actually be productive and because we were meeting like
Because we try to do
yeah,
evenings. We try to do evenings during the
and then
work
we were
week for
both
a
just
while.
like dead and exhausted and we were like okay we're not even being creative in the slightest at 8 p.m. on a Thursday so we need to rearrange so
Mhm.
um yeah and I think just like adjusting to the new job while doing all of that but now we're like 8 months into that routine and so that's just like my schedule now. Like I just that feels normal now. It feels weird when I don't see you on a Sunday like today. I'm like, I'm just here.
I know. I know. It's like, wait, what do I do with my whole day now? Thankfully we
Yeah.
have technology. Um, but I'm curious, especially I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What's the biggest thing that you've learned this year, other than this single moment of learning that I was actually sneaky in my like
The
ask
biggest
of
thing I've
you to
learned this year
join
is that
this?
Steph was pursuing me secretly for 6 months. Uh,
I always have other agendas, so watch
um,
out.
I think for me, like having worked in like small and large businesses, I think it was the learning experience of seeing like actually building a business and like those early stages of like what should the name be, like I feel like even when you work for a
Mhm.
startup you usually don't see that part. Like they've already created the idea, they've created the name, and now they're building a team, but we're not even there yet. Like we are the team. And so seeing it like from ground zero of like what pages do we want on the website, what do we want to call this, what do we want to call this section, like what is this that we want to offer, what do we want to phrase that as, that is cool and just something I didn't like see myself experiencing. And also learned that WordPress is a full-time job after watching Steph learn it.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Even I remember some of your reactions when I've learned it and was teaching you some of the things to get you on there, and your eyes were like
there's
the
been
size
times
of
where
quarters. Like,
we
and you're like, how?
there's been
Yeah, I had
moments
to learn
where,
this from
we will
scratch.
like learn something new together. Like we'll realize that we should have been doing something and we have to go back and like redo
Yes.
everything, that like we both audibly like scream. We're like, ah.
Yeah. Or even like just quietly, just hands on
We're
head,
like
like,
rubbing our
oh
head
my
and we're like
God, we
coming to the
have to.
realization and we're like, does this mean we have to go back and redo all of that?
And it means like 4 hours of redundant work of just sitting, like clicking a couple things,
So
like
yeah,
drag
what's
and
the biggest
drop.
thing
And
you've learned this year? Because I'm guessing it's WordPress.
yeah, actually, I would say WordPress. I would say that I have a hell of a lot more patience than I realized because so my boyfriend works on what's the easiest way to say this? He works on the internet,
He works
basically.
on the
We'll just
internet.
say, um, yeah. Um, I mean, he's more on like the marketing side, like analytical, getting websites to rank well on Google type internet stuff. But to do that, he understands at like the basic level how to build these things. And I remember going with him to a conference at the beginning in early summer, I think it was June, and networking with a lot of people. I mean, he already knew a lot of the people there who work on other internet things, and they all told me when they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I kind of explained, "I'm a personal trainer, but I also do this." I'm like, "Oh, what platform are you using?" And I said WordPress, and they were like, "Oh." They're like, how far along are you? I'm like, I'm still like dabbling, still trying to figure it out. And they warned me by saying you either need to be a developer, like know how to code, or have a shit ton of patience. I was like, okay, but like I'm really smart. I can figure this out. Like I hear you, but I've already spent like 30, 40 hours total like starting, which is like a lot of time to put into a site already. Like Squarespace I had figured out already and by that time I built a site already. Um but yeah, it was actually that trip in the airport on the way home was the first time I was like almost in tears telling my boyfriend, I don't care how much it costs, I'm just gonna hire a developer. I'm done having the patience for this. But we persevered.
I would
We
get
didn't
texts
need to
from
hire
Steph like
anybody.
24 hours apart where she'd be like, we're hiring someone, I'm done. And then she'd be like, I had a breakthrough.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I would say WordPress, and then I would say actually I'm gonna give two. The second thing that I've learned this year, um, like I already knew from the past startup I was at, I was a co-founder of it, and I already knew how nice it was having someone there to go through things with. Like being a solopreneur, the term for being like a single owner of a business, I don't know how anyone does it. And so I had already known that, but I really didn't know anything about you professionally, Kate. Like I knew that you were a fun person and that we got along well, and that I liked you, but I had no idea what you were like to work with. And even just like reminiscing in this podcast about everything, I got so lucky with you. So I've learned that even when I nicely manipulate you into saying yes or like introduce the idea, I mean, I think I could have just plainly said it and you would have been fine. I just didn't know it at the point. I think I could have just flat out said,
Yeah.
"This is my idea, are you in?" And I don't think it would have scared you away. And just like you're super blunt and honest, which like you need in a startup. Like we don't have time. We don't have time to waste. Like we both are
Yeah.
juggling two jobs basically. And like, so having your opinions on things have been like, I've been super bullish. I'm like, oh, we should do this. And you're like, no, Steph, that makes no sense. And I think about it and go, you're right. I don't know what I was thinking. Thank you. And then how you're saying the podcast, like you're perfect in it. It's like you love to talk. You already love. I didn't even know you listened to podcasts. I just told you we were doing a podcast, and so I just like every new chapter, I keep realizing that you just we fit together perfectly. I'm super thankful. I guess I had a hunch and
Yeah.
followed my gut, and I'm
Well, I
glad we
think
ended
like
up bringing
you're
around with
more
you.
like
So
the Energizer Bunny part of this. Like you're like the go 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 idea 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 idea, and then sometimes I feel like I'm like the bad cop, and I'm like no. Like Steph will like
yeah,
be like, oh my god, no, we're gonna add this, and then I think we could just do this, and I'm like no.
yeah, good yin and
But not
yang.
that I'm
Yeah,
not also excitable, but like I think I'm the more like yeah, and I
realistic,
think too because I think
maybe.
for you too, like you spend like three times as many hours a week like wrapped up in it, and then I kind of come in as like the second glance at it, you know, like, and that's also important. I think like when you're building something to have like the person who doesn't get like as lost in it, like doesn't get like as like deep into it every single day, and then comes in like a little less deep and is like, no, that actually doesn't make sense. And then it's like, oh yeah, I was just so deep into this thought that I, and then that applies for like
Yeah.
probably any business that you try to build.
Honestly, yeah, because that's how my at my last job, my co-founder and I were. I learned I am a very detail-oriented person, hence the reason I was able to figure out WordPress and build it. But I can get so lost in the weeds, and I'm so, like you said, so go, go, go. I want to do everything at once, but that's not possible, especially when you're not full-time and don't have a team of 5 full-time people
Yeah,
to do everything with. Like when you and I are both part-time with it technically, and we're the founders, we're the decision makers, we're the marketers, we're the content creators, we're the like data analyzers, we're the finance people, we're the
yeah,
like everything. You can't waste time on things that aren't important. And yeah, you do a good job help when I'm like hanging around like a ball in a ping pong machine. What are they called?
good ball. Yeah.
Pinball. Yeah, pinball, and you're like you're keeping me a little bit more centered. So what was the most unexpected thing that happened this year, or unexpected challenge? I don't know, however you
Um,
want to take that.
Unexpected challenge. I think for me it was like partially the reorganization of my time. That was less unexpected though. Like I kind of knew taking on a whole nother project that I cared about would force me to reorganize my time a little bit. But I think like for me too, like I'm also detail oriented in a different way. And so like you've even called me out before, like I want things to be like perfect before they're like in motion. And you're like, no, you got to put it in
Yeah.
motion imperfect and then we'll perfect it later. And I'm like, no. So
Yeah.
I think that was kind of like me learning that as well because I can be that way with a lot of things where I'm like, no, it's perfect, and then you put it into motion. And that's not really the reality of like building a business. And that's how people like never end up launching a business because they're like, well, no, I want it to be perfect first, and it's never going to be like exactly that final vision, like ever, because it's always going to change and adapt. So I feel like that was kind of something I didn't think about like before we dove in was that idea of like at some point you have to just do it.
Mhm. Yeah. I remember that because I can't remember exactly what the detail was. It was something with the
Yeah.
recipes though. Um and you were going through and like going crazy over editing a bunch of them. And I was like, let's just launch them. It's fine. Like, do these details. Or people, no, what I told you, or I asked you, will anyone else
Yeah.
notice these
And
changes?
I was like, no. And you were like, okay, so what would you say was like surprised you the most in terms of challenges?
I think, phew, I'm gonna have to edit out some time here. I think so. I've always known that, kind of going with like the optimistic energizer bunny, I've always known that I'm one to put too much on my plate. And so I knew that was something I needed to watch out for, but I wasn't expecting like the ratio of time. Like I was starting to get really good at not allowing myself to work more than like X number of hours, or not work too late into the night, or like just balancing how I want to split my time now that I don't have a very structured job. Um, and it really bothered me for the longest time, really before we launched, that I wasn't putting in, especially as I got more clients. I was so excited to be getting the clients and to be like making a decent not salary, a decent income, that I was so pulled towards doing that. But then I had this love of Omnia Fit, and like you were on board, and I felt like I was leaving it behind. Even though I was still putting in like 10, 20 hours a week, I like miss the days of my old job where I was able to just give it my everything. And there was a good 2, 3 months where, as I started getting more and more clients and was being more pulled away from Omnia Fit, but like I also needed to make money. That challenge, it was like a constant fight of, I need money and I love training and I love this in-person time, but I also love building this company. I'm so excited and passionate for what it will be. And like there were times where I would call you on the phone with an idea or something, and then my boyfriend would come out of his office afterwards and go, "What were you shouting about?" Because I would get so excited about things. So it just, like, it felt like I just had these two babies that I wasn't giving either of them enough time, and I was not expecting that challenge. And I think really the way I fixed that was with the podcast, actually. When we said we're just going to launch it, we're going to do 12 episodes, and the last episode is going to be launching the website, so it better
Yeah,
be
that
ready.
gave us a deadline
And
because we were, and I think that also helped us with
mhm.
the actually doing it, like following through on launching it and doing it, was we knew like that kind of had to be the timeline when we did it.
And I think it helped us prioritize, because I said, like, I was always putting 10 to 20 hours in a week, even at my busiest, or with like, even at my busiest with personal training, but I didn't, like, they weren't efficient hours. And so I think it just really helped us narrow down and focus on really what was important to get this thing launched. And like, we had to cut out some things, and even other, I mean, there's lots of things that we still want to add to the site and that we have ready to add, but we just didn't have time to continue doing. And so we just had to make those decisions of, are these things really important right now, just to get it to launch on time and not drive ourselves crazy in the process. And I think, how do we not give ourselves that hard deadline, then I don't know, the site probably still wouldn't have been
Yeah,
launched, to be honest.
probably. In the spirit of
Hmm.
that, we're almost 1 year in. What do you picture like this time next year looking like?
Oh, this is where I get all my ideas and you get to say, hold on.
You guys are gonna see it in real time. I'm gonna be like,
um,
Steph, no, stop, cut that.
yeah, we won't edit. I won't edit any of this. Um, It's gonna be full time with Omnia Fit. She's gonna have, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, maybe, I don't know, that can be your answer. I picture, I just picture Omnia Fit being a well-oiled machine. Like at this point, we're launched, but we're still, and like we have people on the site and using it, giving us feedback, and things are going well for just having launched. But I picture next year it being like our groove being more like management of the business and marketing. Whereas right now it's a lot of creating the content to go on the site and like a little
Yeah.
fumbling through the marketing. Still learning about that, but I see next year being a little bit more of a well-oiled machine where it's just moving, grooving. I could see us having interns that are helping us create content, hiring more trainers to be on the site, hiring editors. Like that would be probably the number one thing is um, like even we've talked about before, any of us go like full, either of us go full time with it, like taking the money we earn and investing it into like instead of me spending 2 3 hours editing a podcast, send that to a
Yeah.
professional to do it in one and like pay them to do it. So I see like us focusing purely on like the strategy and growth and like building the community of dietitians and trainers that are on the site and the community on the podcast and the community of the people signed on to the website itself and like really nourishing that and making it like a really great place for people to come get information and people like know that this is a place that they can come get truly scientific backed, not bullshit information on how to live life well and like really be healthy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think for me it's like I actually picture it being like a community in multiple ways. Like I think that we'll have more of a community in terms of working on the podcast and the website. Like I think that we'll maybe not be the two of us so much anymore, like whether it's interns or an editor or a developer, or there's going to be somebody else in the mix, I think, by this time next year. And also, I think just like my hope would be that by next year, it's more of a community for the users of the site as well, which we have plans for how to make it that way in motion. But I think that will be something cool to see by this time next year is how it's become more of a community for the users too, and not just even as our team grows, sort of like their community grows as well.
Mhm. Yeah. But truth be told, this is, I mean, Omnia Fit, what it is now, is very different than
Yeah,
it was a year
we
ago.
might we
So
might be doing something way
we'll
different.
see. Right. Oh gosh. Um, what like especially like we both have experience working in startups, so we know a lot about starting a company, but from the experiences that you've had this last year, what is like one piece of advice from like you said you've been here since like the very beginning, like pre even naming, like we were
Yeah,
pre LLC, like anything happening. What's a piece of advice you would give to someone who has an idea or maybe doesn't have an idea but knows that they don't want to maybe work a typical 9 to 5 or that they want to work for themselves, have a side idea?
I think I would say that there's value in not doing it by yourself, because I feel like that's like in reflecting on all of this, we keep saying that like how grateful we are to have each other in the process. And especially like I feel like I could be wrong, but even if you want to do the whole thing by yourself, like all the WordPress that you did and everything, even just having a partner to like bitch to about it, like even just having someone to like share the experience with, I think is valuable, because like I was not as much in the weeds with you, but like if I was, I would think that being able to text you and be like, this is terrible would just already relieve some of that like frustration, and like I feel like make you more likely to not just throw in the towel when things get frustrating, because you have that partner that's kind of like the balance. Like when one of you gets frustrated, the other can step up, and or when one of
Yeah.
you goes like crazy on an idea or something, like we said, like the other one can be like, no. So, or like, no, we have to just do it. Like, kind of how we've experienced. Like, I can't imagine doing all of it alone, and I feel like it's just less likely to happen, honestly, if you're doing it by yourself. Which so many people do it by
I think,
themselves, and
yeah.
they must be rock stars and angels, and I don't know. Like, I don't know, but I would say like find a partner would be my advice.
Yeah, you're so right because it's. I remember when I first got you onto WordPress to like add the recipes and like some of the other edits on there and stuff, and like you and like you having someone to walk you through it, and you're like, what in the
I was like,
world? And
Steph, what
even
is
like I
this? Like,
explained
where
it,
did
and
you
then
learn how
there's
to
like,
do this?
yeah, and then even like I would teach you, and then I would like catch something later of like, wait, you forgot these things to do too, and you're like, I don't even know, like, what the hell? And that's where I felt, I was like, she really understands my pain now, because there's the level of frustration, and then like having to YouTube stuff, and so I was like, she really feels it now. But even, yeah, no matter what, I think the bitching definitely helps. But then also, like, there's been times with social media where I'll like question something and be like, I don't know how to do this, or like, let's just not do that right now. And you're the one who's like, just post it. Like, so I think the
Yeah.
perfectionist goes both ways in different things. Um, so I think having that second opinion when you're getting in your head or creating stories as to why something isn't going to work, and like you've pushed me through times when I've been like, I'm done, I need a break, and you're like, let's just it's like
And I
just
think
post it. It's
likewise,
not
like
that bad.
sharing the excitement of like figuring stuff out too. Like, even as dumb as this is, like I was so excited when I figured out the reels with the words on each slide, and I texted Steph and I was like, "Oh my god, I finally figured it out! I've been sitting at the CVS waiting for my booster, like just just frustrated to no end with this, and like finally figured it out." And I was like, "Steph, we got it."
Yeah, it really is. Like I feel like I don't know what I feel like. You get a text from me, and your reaction, I imagine, has to either be like like what is it now, like not knowing what to expect, if it's going to be me excited about something happening, like the stupidest little thing, I get excited about everything, or like me bitching about something. Like, you never know what you're going to get. It's like a game of text roulette
Yeah,
of what is Steph
yeah.
texting
I'm like
about
at
right
work and I
now.
see Steph's name and I just put it away. No, I'm just kidding.
Rude.
I see it and I'm like, nah, no.
You're like, it's either going to be too high emotions or too low emotions, I
And
can't
I
handle
think
this
we
at
both
work right
like we
now.
both had days where like we just don't answer each other that day, and the next day we're like, okay, honestly, I couldn't. We're like,
Yeah.
I wasn't in the
Oh, for
Omnia
sure.
Fit brain space yesterday or whatever it might be. But yeah, I
Oh, for
think
sure.
find a partner. It's much more fun.
Yeah. Hmm. And I think, I mean, we've already been saying it, but my biggest advice, and it's advice that we'll need to keep listening to, is to just don't stop. Because, I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand with the partner, because it's easier if you have, if you by yourself are going through the highs and lows, when you're at your lows, it's a lot more difficult to get back to the highs. But if you're at your lows, there's a higher chance that your partner may be at a high and can kind of pull you up and like take turns and keep each other motivated. Um, but I've heard that the biggest reason that companies fail is because the owners quit too soon. And that's something that I can't remember where we heard that, or if one of us told the other that, but it's something that we've like kept in our heads as we've been building to launch this, and especially as we continue. I mean, a year from now, we said where we want to be. It could be we have 20 people actively
Yeah,
using the site. I don't know. Like, it could be, and that's where a lot of people just stop and say, "Oh, we failed, we quit." But there's there's so many stories too. Like, when you see the most successful people, odds are they have several failure stories before they got to that point. Like, you see the tip of the iceberg, you don't see all the ice underneath helping keep that afloat. So I think we've already been using that mantra a lot this year and have helped each other with it. But moving forward, like, just don't quit. We just need to keep pushing through until you figure it out. And as long as if you keep trying to figure it out,
yeah,
you probably will.
agreed.
Mm. So then, along those lines, how are we going to know if this is successful? Kate, what's your
Um,
opinion?
I mean, there's like two answers to that for me. I would say the first one is I think that I will feel like it was successful when we get like the first story of someone who loves it and it made an impact on them. Like, I feel like the first time that someone tells us that they've been using it and it's like changed their mindset, or listening to our podcast like changed the way they think about something, I think those are like every time that's going to feel like it was a success because we did something. Um, but I feel like I also like the the bigger picture portion of me pictures us like in a little office in Chicago, typing away on our computers, like with a little team around us. Like that's like kind of like my bigger picture, maybe.
With cake and like fruit in the middle of the table,
Charlie, of
always.
course,
And
Charlie
Charlie, of
and cake.
course. Not in the middle of the table
He will
because he'll
end
eat
up
the
on the middle
cake.
of the table eating the cake at some point, but not intentionally.
Yeah. Like how he ended up on my coffee table eating my
Yeah,
food
he's a
the other
bandit.
week.
He has,
He's like,
if there's
he's
food,
like,
he finds it,
you.
he eats it, he will jump 6 feet in the air to find it, but he will do it.
Even though he's
Not
half
even.
a foot tall.
Those little legs. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think that's like my two visions of success. I feel like I'm going to feel successful all the time that someone gives us feedback that we made a difference. But then I also see like that end goal of like, I think what we both picture eventually happening, which is cool. So, how about you?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to steal your answer a little bit. Um, I gotta come up with my own. But I like what you said about every little win is a success. Like we've already had that. We've already like I've screenshotted messages to you, even like not on the site, but just following our social media of like one of my mom's friends messaged her and was like, I love like she follows Omnia Fit and she's like, I love the messages that they send where she's like, I love the episode they did on how to get through the holidays and it was basically go like have fun, drink, go up for second dessert,
Yeah.
and don't diet. And like that was the advice to get through. And she's like, you don't hear that anywhere. Or like, I love when you message me about how much your mom even loves
Steph has my
the
mom
workout
doing
videos.
like hit workouts. Like, I don't know what. Yeah.
There's not even that many hit workouts on there, but your
Yeah.
mom found them and she loved
Yeah.
them.
She's out there in her basement doing these workouts. So, uh, yeah. And I mean, even like, I've even had friends who listen and like are like, I listen to every episode and I love it. And I'm like, really? Every single episode? Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. But
Actually, Liz from the first episode of this season, she told me at the very beginning, like we were hopping on to do the podcast, and she went, I listened to every single episode of your first season. I love it. I'm absolutely going to send it to people who are like looking for that positive
yeah,
reinforcement of healthy lifestyle. And, just, and I'm like, that's so cool. Like you do this for a living. Like you don't need to listen to these. Like you are in the mindset. You are like we
yeah,
interviewed you for this. So that I couldn't believe
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think there's going to be like a lot of
So,
success moments, and there's probably going to be like a lot of times where we're like, okay, this is it, this is the success, and then I think that comes in waves too, right? Like it'll go up and down 100 times, but yeah, I think it'll come a lot of times.
yeah. But I think, like you said, like picturing us in like a little office in Chicago or something, um, like I think I like that measurement of because like we're not doing this for the money. Like right now we're making nothing from this. Like when we made our first $100, I like screenshotted the bank account and sent it to Kay, and I was like, "We made something." But we're in the very baby stages of this, so like we're not doing this for the money, but I think when we've been able to impact enough people because they're truly loving the site, I mean, like we need to make money. Um, but I think when we've impacted so many people that we're able to sustain the business expenses, continue growing and evolving the business, and sustain ourselves to be able to do this full time. I mean, I'll always train people because I love it, but to kind of flip that, where then training becomes my side. I do it for fun, not for to pay my bills. But like when we've impacted so many people that we can
Yeah,
afford to both do this full time, I feel like that's a good measurement of we've impacted so many people that we can put all
yeah,
of our time into
I
this
agree.
now. So maybe that'll be a year from now. Who knows? I kind of joked about you quitting your job, but
If you're my
I don't know.
coworker, you didn't hear that.
We're simmering the pot again. Oh shoot!
No,
Wait, do we need to edit that out?
No, I don't think any of my coworkers
Okay.
listen to this. Besides Sam, shout out. But
Wait, so you let me know if you want me to keep that in or not. We won't post it in a clip on Instagram.
no, I think it's fine. We can keep it in. Um,
Perfect. If
yeah.
you change your mind, let me
No,
know.
I mean, yeah, I don't think anyone from work. Also, I feel like my bosses would be like, okay, cool.
I mean, they
Yeah,
get it. It's a startup.
but
So,
yeah,
yeah. I think, are there any final thoughts you have on what we're doing or this last year or getting in preparation for 2022?
yeah, I mean, 2021, like, I think it was just like a big year for both of us, like personally and through Omnia Fit and the world and everything. So I'm excited for 2022,
Mhm.
um, both for Omnia Fit and us both personally. And yeah, it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah. I think it's cool to see how much we accomplished in 2021, where this was almost a very different idea than what it's evolved to now. I mean, to what it's evolved to now, that was said really strangely. But just to see the progress that we've made in a year through uncertainty, through big life changes, through not knowing, I mean, we still don't know what we're doing, but not even knowing, I don't even
Yeah,
know how to build a website. And here we are. And now I think coming into 2022, we're very, like, it's a little bit, I don't want to jinx this, a little bit more predictable. I'm worried something's going to happen now in 2022. If it does, everyone, I'm so sorry. But it's like a little bit more predictable of like our paying jobs, our structure with Omnia Fit, our personal lives. Like I think it's just, I'm so excited to see how much we can do because I feel like the amount of effort or focus we'll be able to have on Omnia Fit will like double compared to this last year because of all the craziness. And so, like, if you double what we accomplished this
yeah.
year, that's huge. So I'm so excited
Hopefully,
for
Steph does not
2022.
get any more like unhinged life change texts from me in 2022. That's the goal.
No. Or like, can you call me next time so I'm not like reading this? I'm like, is she okay? How is she internalizing this? Is she okay? Like I had no emotion for that text. I had
Hopefully,
no
it just
idea how
won't
you were
happen this
doing.
year, and then we just won't have to do that again.
Okay. But if it
I'll
does,
give you
please
a
call
call.
me.
The next big
Okay.
life change, I'll give you a call instead of a long text where I also tie in the work that
Okay.
I need to get done.
Yeah. Now whenever, because we always text, I'm gonna get a call from you whenever it may be, and my heart's gonna race like, what's happening?
That's a
Perfect. So now I'm
good
trying for
life
you.
change
Any
that I
calls I
call
get.
you about, not like a terrible one.
Okay, we'll
Manifest.
manifest that it's only good things in 2022.
Yep.
And we'll end there.